All right, are we running? Okay, break time's over, guys. Looks like we're up and running. Hopefully we won't crash. Yeah. Yeah, would you monitor it, Dwayne, please? Because, you know, God forbid things work around here. I mean, okay, so we are near the end. Not of the world, I know it feels like it, but the end of the quarter, right? So week 8, we are going to be using custom fields in your WordPress site today. We are gonna put widgets in our site. So the assignments then that relate to today's lecture are create a pull quotes for your site using custom fields and add a widget to your site in your sidebar, and we will go over those in a few minutes. And then we have next week where Monday is Memorial Day, and so don't show up. We will be doing the lecture search engine optimization in WordPress without using a plugin on that Wednesday. And then the lecture during week 10 will be the Flex slider without using a plugin. And then finals week. So there are no presentations in this class. Okay, so during finals week, I neither have a presentation for you guys to do nor a final exam. However, if you guys really, really demand a final exam in this class, I can make one up. Is that what you guys want? You sure? You guys sure? So I can be here during finals week for an open lab because I have to be during finals week. I think that's what I have in my head is law, that I have to be here for one. So I am totally willing to show up and conduct an open lab. All assignments then are due no later than midnight on the 17th. Let's make sure that that date is correct, because it may be incorrect. This is really going to be terrible if Chrome is not going to work.
We should all merge over to Lisa's.
It's not Lisa that.
Yeah, but you light the fire underneath.
No.
Right people.
No, Lisa is not the right person to light a fire under for this.
It's not what her blog says.
Come on, Chrome. So that would be the 16th instead of the 17th. So I will change that. So basically I have to, and I'll put it on my roster as I grade on the 19th to get things done and up for grading. So basically then all assignments, if you have outstanding assignments, I will make sure that I change this to that Friday finals week. So I have graded everything through create the template files for your assignment. Okay, I have not gotten to the static homepage yet because that was just due this past Friday. I will get to that this week. So any questions so far on any of that stuff, grading, assignments, et cetera, et cetera? You sent me an email? Just now? Okay. Do you want to ask a question? Is it, do you think the whole class might? The spaces again?
Yeah, that's what was telling me.
In the functions file?
In the index file.
In the index file.
That's
Again,
what was holding it back.
if all of a sudden your site says, I'm sorry, I can't load anything functions file, right? How many of you have gotten that this quarter? A few of you. No spaces before and after the PHP script tag in your functions file. Otherwise things, huh?
Or index.
Maybe.
No, that's what.
Really?
It was index.php.
Interesting.
And I erased the spaces.
Interesting. We'll have to take a look. Show me what you did. But anyway, that is a known issue that, you know, that's just what happens. All right. So custom fields in your WordPress site. So what are custom fields? Well, there are a lot of places in WordPress you may not be, and I mean no offense when I say this, you may not be savvy enough of a WordPress user just yet to really feel like you need, you know what, I wish there was this place that I could maybe use like a variable and a value for that variable. Has anybody thought of that, felt like that yet? Chris, you came close the other day, right? Did you solve your featured image issue? You used that plugin, did you get it to work? You wanted to use, so this one example that I have here is kind of similar to, you have this featured image field, right? That you use as your featured image, or what do they call it? What do they call the featured image? What's another name for it?
Used icons.
Huh? Post thumbnail. That's the function, right? Get thumbnails, right? Exactly. So if you need another featured image or anything like that, one way that you can do that is to then use custom fields. So basically what custom fields are is you can think of it as a value or a variable value pair, right? That makes sense to you. I make a variable, I give it a value, banner equals that. Or the way they describe it, a key value pair, right? So let's say you needed to allow a user to do something like have a place in the content management system where they can put this image into the whole system, right? So you know as well as I do that if we were hand coding that, that would be, hey, grab this image URL, right? And put that as the source value in an image tag, okay? So right now then, if I inspect that image, right? Image tag, ID, spotlight my main image, source value equals where we have uploaded that image under WP, so under their domain, under WP 2015R, which means I converted it to being responsive in 2015. That was my WordPress folder name. After using WordPress folders, if you update the site, you can just then point to the new folder, then that's the old one, then you can point to a new one, so on and so forth. They tell two friends and they tell two friends, etc. In the WP content folder, in the uploads folder, because this image then was uploaded via the content management system admin, it's in the 210 folder, 06, female warehouse worker cropped JPEG, okay? So in order to then use that image, we would need to, some way, shape, or form. Jill, anytime I say one way, shape, or form, or something regarding to that, a long time ago, a student said it should be a drinking game. So. So if I log in. I don't know who on their side put this double authentication on their WordPress site. It is? Okay. Because the first time it caught me, I was like, wait a second, who hacked into the site? And I've not talked to them about it, right? But I'm guessing that because they have, again, my wife works with the company, they have IT guys that work with security. I should actually ask my wife, but she might say, I don't know, right? But yeah, they're making me double authenticate now. And I'm like, interesting, interesting. So back to what we should be talking about. Yeah, they do, don't they? Yeah, okay. So if I then wanted to allow them to pick this new image and change it, do you think they've been picking images and changing the images? Why, Chris? That would require knowledge and effort, and it's easier for them just to pay me hourly to do stuff. So one could say, you know what, I did that for nothing, but at least I get to use it, right? So, and get paid, and the world keeps spinning. So here then, banner URL, okay? So I wrote them this tutorial a long time ago. Creating a spotlight image. Step one, if you guys were to actually do this, this would be the directions that you would use. Step one, get an image, resize it to 600 to 340. Step two, upload it to your media library. Step three, no attachments found. You might look for the name. I don't want to go find it because the title has probably changed. Let's just go back here, right? So then when you upload a media file, right, it will tell you then the file path, right? So get that file path, choose custom field banner, and then paste that URL there, step 5, preview, okay? So basically, all I've done is say, choose the variable of banner, or in this case, the key of banner, and give it a value, okay? Then we need to instruct the WordPress machine to use that value in a specific place, okay? So here's how that goes. In a minute. Because what we're going to use it, Chris. Okay? What was I talking about, Chris? Sounds good. I like cupcakes. That was a good answer. So if I go to page.php, right, this is where then for the image source here on image spotlight main large, echo get post meta. For the post ID, get the value of banner. True, not false. In other words, go get it. So this is where the function to get a custom field then, well, let's go back to what are custom fields, okay? So again, let me start off by explaining what custom fields actually are. WordPress defines these as custom fields. Okay. As a key value pair. Okay. The key is the name of the metadata element. The value is the information that will appear in the metadata, right? So for instance, in this case, the key was I need some kind of an image, a banner image or a spotlight image, right? So I can name it however I want, right? And then if I put that value of that URL in there, and then I say using the get post meta function to fill that source value with the image, and everything's happy and it shows up, okay? So here then is the key is set to banner, the value is set to, ooh, I have a mistake in that URL. Let's see if it loads. Oh, it does anyway. Look at that. WordPress knows, okay? So again, how do we use custom fields? So this is where then spotlight image, right? I will use, like we were just saying, the key of banner and the value of it, right? And then use that in our page. So here's what we're going to do, right? We are going to create a custom field. And instead of custom field banner, right, we are going to put a quote in our pages like we want to. In other words, Chris, you're saying, how do I do this? And my answer is, let's use an example that pretty much is just an example pulled out of the seat of my you-know-what to put a quote in there, right? So, WEB170, premiumw.com. If we ever have a need for something like, I want to put on my about page this quote that says the market is flooded with my 2 cents, because that pretty much sums me up in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words, right? So if I want to put this here then, I can use the custom fields. I can create a value called quote. And in that, excuse me, I can create a key or a variable, right, called quote. And for that value then, I can say whatever I want to, right? So I now have, like I said, a key value pair that is usable. Another Some of you may think to yourself, well, that might not really come in that handy, right? Is anybody sort of thinking that? Maybe not, maybe you don't know the WordPress box enough. But this is where I've used custom fields intensively to get these sub-navigation items, right, to show up within, under class. Is it a lecture? Is it assignment? Is this page the student page, right? So for instance, this spring 2017 page here where then I go and pick on Chris, right? Because Chris is my go-to guy to pick on, right? It just means you're awesome, Chris. It really does, right? Even with that eye roll, it does. So basically then, how do I get this page? Because if you look at the URL, right? WEB170 spring 2017. So there's an extra bit of taxonomy between this page and the class name. So the extra taxonomy is the category of lectures, class, etc. So again, as far as I know, you can't use categories on pages. Maybe you can with a plugin, right? Or maybe I can add a meta box like we were trying to do the other day, to add a meta box of categories to pages. But instead of using categories, the custom fields thing is right there for me to use. So I log in. I wish when I logged in, it would take me right back to the page that I was on. But it doesn't. And if I go to edit page then, navigation, student, okay? So what if I change this to class? Spring 17 now shows up under here, okay? Not because I've said show up, well, class means something. The label navigation means something. In other words, if we go to then, here's my submenu. So remember how we just did the list pages function the other day, right?
Yes, see.
Thank you. One of the arguments that I can use in the list pages function child of, interesting, it's not showing to me there. Well, get the title, post parent. I can then say meta key, meta value. right? So I should be able to pass meta key and meta value as arguments through any of these functions, right? So in other words, if I want to say for the lectures, right, spot, go get the meta key of navigation, the meta value of lecture, then for wherever we are then in this whole WordPress box or in the WordPress site, given again the ID of where we are, right? Whatever page we're on. Then put that navigation there. So what I just did was, because this page now has the key of navigation and the value of class, meta key of navigation, meta value of class, put it there. If I want to go put it back under students, under the headline of students, right? Meta key, navigation, meta value, student. So if I put it back, I've already gone through that one. Student. Update. View page, right? Again, the level of page has not changed. This is still a secondary level page, meaning this is the page name under that navigation tab. But no longer is it here. Now it's back under there. Is that another way of looking at this? Okay. So anything that you need, if you need to basically on any page or posting, right, have some kind of, like I said, if you want to, how I started rationalizing it a long time ago was, oh, a variable and a value, right? The variable in navigation, the value of class or student or whatever. Or if you want to think of it as a key value pair, the key of navigation, the value of, right? Does that kind of make sense with what you were talking about and why I was saying, hey, Chris, that might be a reason why you want to do it that way? Okay. So now we want to, and by we, I really mean I want you to, right? Have some kind of key value pair. And when I was thinking about, what can I do for this assignment? In other words, is doing a quote system like we're going to do it in this class today the best way to do a quote system? Probably not, right? But at least it is an exercise that will show you how to fundamentally use the key value pairs of custom fields, okay? All right, so if we go to the Spring 1701 demo for this class, right? And I navigate to my About page. Currently, I have nothing in my sidebar for my About page, right? There's me right there. I could not have asked for a better graduation photo, right? In other words, the UW had their professional photographers, right? And this is the luckiest photo I've ever been in, because this basically, I basically had a professional, high-powered UW paid. This was on the front page of the UW website, take a photo of me that I get to keep, right? So, but if we go to then portfolio, right, this is where we put in the subpages, right? So let's go back here. This right here, I can right now. I mean, I did. In other words, do you want me to go look at that real quick? Chris, do you want me to look at it? I mean, I needed to open up the sidebar file anyway, Chris, So remember how basically we used an H2 tag and we did a if is page conditional, right? And we did an if is page conditional down here for the actual items. We did a if is page conditional for the H2 and gave it the value of get the post parent title. So if we didn't put this conditional in there, we wouldn't have that. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing is, remember that when we did the WP list pages function, it will give us a title LI, meaning it would say, give us the title of portfolio, right? Unless we told it to title LI is equal to nothing. Maybe that's your, did you use this key value pair in your arguments? Okay, so those are the two things. Okay. So then spring 17, going back here, right? So let's log in. WP admin. Back to page, refresh, edit page. So here's what you want to do, Chris. You always want to wear your flip-flops when you're graduating. That's the first thing you want to do. Right now, yeah, flip-flops when you're graduating. People laughed at me pretty hard for that. I didn't think there was going to be a photo of me with my flip-flops, right? But here is where on each page or posting, you should have a meta box for custom fields. If yours is not showing up, Chris, because the look on your face tells me yours is not showing up, where might we go to see if it should be showing up or not? Do you think? Where might we go to see if it should be showing up or not? Screen options. How did you know? Okay. Is your custom fields turned on here, Chris? And by that, I mean, is the box checked? I caught those. Okay. That was not what I meant, Anthony. What? So check it. Thanks, Jim. Yes, I was just being observed for my tenure. So that was. So for your custom field then, right, this is where, Chris, we can say, oh, add a new custom field. Okay. What's the quote? Is that an appropriate quote? No, no, Kristen, it's not. This is my, okay. This is something that my dying wish, right? Before I die, I'd love somebody that I do not know come up to me and say, yes. This is something that I made up that I think is extremely funny, right? I say this to my child all the time. Instead of patience is a virtue, I tell him patience is not just Guns N' Roses song. So he's growing up as that is a normal quote, okay? Right? So if I then add custom field, right? Now, if I added another custom field, right? This is where then I should get a drop down, right? To choose from. I'm not getting a drop down. But we can have as many custom fields as we want on whatever page to basically use whatever thing however we want to, right? So if I say on then my about page, patience is not just a Guns N' Roses song, and I want to say quote is the key, right? So again, key value pair. Fill in the custom field name, right? And I used uppercase quote here. I'm used lowercase there. It's case sensitive, okay? And give it a value. And then basically you can write out a conditional that says, does the custom field exist? If so, write that value of that custom field wherever you want to, okay? So we could shorten this if we wanted to, but the right way of doing it is if something exists, then use it, right? So this is where then flip through my notes. And in my sidebar, I am going to say then, if get post meta, okay? So this is where the get post meta function. Okay. So where we're saying we can just straight up say echo get post meta for the post ID, right? Or for the post parent or whatever whatever property we want to use, right? But ID and parent, we have to basically make it a page, or for ID, whatever, right? Key, true, okay? So, if then, post meta, post ID, quote, true, and I'm going to use this syntax. Right? Because again, this syntax will allow us to open up then or escape and then write HTML, right? I then want to say if there is something, if there is a value for quote, my quote goes here, right? So in order to get that quote then, just like this right here, I want to say then, and this is where I need to use an echo statement, right? Again, but before I use the echo statement, I want to open up the PHP script tag. Echo get post meta and this is where again we want to say post ID, meaning for the post ID, go get the value of, or excuse me, go get the key of quotes, and true, echo that value, whatever it is, to the screen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So therefore, let's close some of these tabs. If I now make sure that that's updated, page, patience is not just Guns N' Roses. Now, I believe, I'm guessing, that I don't even really have to use this if condition. In other words, I'm just saying, go get for whatever ID you're on, the value of quotes and put it there. So let's see if we get an error. I can't remember if we get an error on the other pages or not. I don't think we would. But there is now a value in there. So if I went to portfolio, it's going to print out the block quote just being empty, right? So all the if conditional really is doing is, if there is something, create the block quote tag, right? Which this is the I don't want to say the better way of doing it, but do I want a block quote tag in my sidebar that's empty if I don't have a quote? Probably not, right? So I would use this way of doing it. Hooray! Does that make sense? Yes. So if I want to then go to, now I'm on my portfolio page, and I want to edit page. Then I have this drop down here because I've created two keys, right? Yeah. Hold on, let me get through this little statement here, okay? So because I've created those custom field keys, right? Anywhere I'm in the site, then I can use the custom field meta box to then grab those keys and then say, now, I can't take credit for this quote. I heard it somewhere, right? But it does, like I said, sum me up pretty well. Wouldn't you guys agree? Nobody's agreeing with that? Huh? I'm trying to be funny, Analia. I'm trying to make a joke about myself about how, oops, did I even save it? Maybe I didn't save it. Yep, didn't save it. Quotes. The market is flooded with my 2 cents. And Annalie, you're supposed to laugh because that's really funny. Thank you. Is that so hard? Wasn't. I know. I know. I think I'm really funny. I know. So then there is that quote there. Chris, what's your question? You can, but that would be, there's no reason to do that other than if you're going to write it somewhere. I mean, what you could do is make a function called get my quote that accesses the key value pair and then use shortcode somewhere in your posting to populate it. But, or you would just, in other words, if I wanted something like this here, that block quote, I wouldn't do this that way. Matter of fact, I probably wouldn't do this that way at all. I'd use probably some quote generating plugin that then, although, I don't know. I mean, this is really, you know, like let's say you wanted to put a testimonial in your sidebar, right? So for instance, way back when I did this website many moons ago, and we had these quotes here in the sidebar. This is where I got the idea for this assignment, was what if I wanted to put a specific quote on a specific page in the sidebar? The easiest way to do it would be using a custom field, right? So that's where an easy way to do, you know, you can use an image, you can use text, you can, you know, with whatever key value pair. That's why I was saying maybe use featured image, right? Does that make sense? Does that?
Yes.
See, it makes sense to Anthony.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where then, if a quote exists, my quote goes here, right? And again, it's case sensitive, and I'm not going to go give this styles in my demos that I'm doing for each class, right? Because that'd be kind of a waste of time. But that's where, for my main demo, I gave it some style, and you know. But you can do, you know, anywhere you need a certain piece of information on a certain page or a posting, that is definitely a way you can do it. Okay? All right. Should we go into widgets now, or should we do widgets on Wednesday? You guys want the rest of this period to be open lab, or do you want me to just go into widgets and have Wednesday be open lab? Do widgets. Okay. What is a widget, Chris? Interesting. Yes. Yes, it is. Okay. So there are many widgets around the WordPress universe. Currently, we don't have a spot to put widgets within our admin because, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now, let's see, did I close my, let's close some of these pages right now. So currently right now, if we go to our dashboard and we go under appearance, we don't see widgets. If I go to my demo and I go under appearance, I see widgets. Okay. What are widgets? Well, widgets are dynamic pieces of content, like Chris said, that are used with plugins. You can make them yourself. There's a lot of the ones that come out of the box with WordPress, like the Meta one. So remember when we first set up our WordPress install, and in the sidebar, you had the login meta information? Does anybody remember that? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Should I show you an example? It's going to piss somebody off if I do, but I'm willing to do that. No, I'm not going to do it. Let's just say this. Let's do it like this. If I go back to my demo, regular demo. In my sidebar here, I have the meta information, okay? That is out of the box WordPress, right? That if I'm in the site anywhere besides the home page, right, I have this log in, log out, cited, admin, entries, comments, WordPress.org bit of functionality here, right? So remember when you first installed WordPress and used a default theme in your sidebar, you had this. Does anybody remember that? That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what we're going to do. That is a widget. Okay. So currently, if we're in our demo here, we don't see widgets in this menu. Why? Chris, why? We haven't turned it on. I'm just going to let that hang out there. Okay. How do we turn it on, Chris? I'm not going to fall for that, Joe. I'm not going to fall for that. We need to register sidebars. Okay. So just like we registered navigation menus, just like we had theme support for thumbnails, we need to allow our websites to, and here's the thing, sidebars and widgets and lions and tigers and bears, right? A dynamic sidebar contains dynamic widgets. Your sidebar file is a sidebar file. Your sidebar in your website is an element in your website that is a place on your website. So using the name sidebar can get kind of confusing, okay? But what we want to do is we want to enable or register sidebars, okay? So what we can do then is, in other words, to get widgets in our WordPress menu so we can then go and add widgets to our sidebar, we need to use the register sidebar function, okay? Where we can use, again, an argument system using an array. We can name a sidebar, we can give it an ID, give it a description, etc. Okay? If we then just say, I'm going to put this after my, no, I'm going to put it up top because registering a sidebar is pretty. Okay, so if I use the register sidebar function, now in my Spring 1 demo, if I refresh under my appearance here, I should have widgets. Okay? And I should have sidebar 1. Okay? Now, this is where then in sidebar 1, right, I need to tell WordPress via code where to put these widgets. In other words, where is sidebar 1 going to show up in my website? Is that making sense what I'm asking you? Okay. Well, I want it to show up in my sidebar.php file. And this is where I am now around my elements. I'm going to create some div tags because now that I'm starting to get a lot of elements in my sidebar, I want to separate them out. So give me a second just to write some comments. You may be wondering why I'm not putting a div tag here with an ID, right? And I'll show that to you in a second. Okay. But now that I have registered a sidebar, I need to call that dynamic sidebar. Okay. Currently, because we haven't named any of our sidebars, right, we can use the function dynamic sidebar number 1 to then grab dynamic sidebar number 1, right? So if I save this now, and I refresh and inspect, you should see in sidebar begin widgets, end widgets, but you don't see any widgets yet or anything in there because I have not put anything into sidebar 1. I am going to take the meta information, the out-of-the-box WordPress meta information, save it, so now I've put that meta information in sidebar 1. And when I visit site and go look in my sidebar, now I should have that in there. And let's see. It is then giving me the list items, right? But it doesn't have a div tag around it, okay? So what I want to do here is I want to be a little bit more specific here with my directions. Okay. So just like here with the array system, I can use different parameters that I want to. Okay. This is where then I can say before and after widget. So now, if I do that, and I refresh, I have a div tag around then that widget. And notice it says class widget title here, right, for that H2. But I don't have any IDs or classes in the actual surrounding div tag. They're there. In other words, the information to be written as an ID and or a class is there to be written. But this is where there's a special way that WordPress would like you to, well, again, why do you do that? Well, that's just the way it's set up, son, right? That's just the way you do it, okay? So here then, if I want a specific ID, or I want the ID that is associated with that widget, right? In other words, that widget has a name. And if I want to use that name or whatever as the ID, I can say ID equals, right? And this is where we use funny characters that you may or may not know about. $1 Huh? Yeah. Explain it. What's going on here?
Oh, no, I know the individuals.
Oh, but not all of them put together?
In that
You're
order,
making a
I know-
joke.
Yes. Still on there.
That's a good one. That's good. Took me a second. Okay. So what's happening here? Did anybody remember when we were going over the navigation stuff? Yeah, let me, all right. Did internet go down? Yours isn't working? Is it the whole internet or is it just my site? What? Yeah. Huh. Well, let me just restart my server and say, whatever, DreamHost. Well, while we're waiting for that, let's just say it like this. In our navigation system, did anybody remember where I said something like, oh, there we go. I don't know, maybe DreamHost just said, "Bleh." Maybe. Let's see, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Anybody remember where I just said, oh, don't do this. Let's forget about that right now. Okay. There was one student, Thaddeus, had to use this because he had certain classes that he needed an ID to pass on the UL, right? So if you made an items wrap a UL tag, you had to use these funny characters to get it to write the list items in there, okay? And then you had to use these funny characters right there to get it to write the class names in there, okay? So we're using the same funny characters to write then div ID class equals, and this is where I want to say class equals widgets, right? As well are on the other things in my sidebar, ID subnavigation. I'm going to say class equals widget there, right? Because all I'm trying to say is, if I have a div element in my sidebar, that's commonly known as a widget. Widgets mean a lot of different things. So if I want each element in my sidebar to have, let's say, margin bottom 20, okay? This is an easy way then to do that. Right? And that's where if I want a div around each one of the widgets that I put in my sidebar, that's where then in the functions file, I can say class equals widget here. But notice I left a space here because those widgets also might have their own classes that they want to write onto the widget. So therefore, I would use this one, right? So if I did that now, it's given the ID of meta3 class widget meta. Okay? So using those special characters is a way to hook into that plugin to have it write its own IDs and class names, just like your navigation system has written in its own IDs and class names. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. So that's where then these, the for widget, it's common to use the ID %1 $s class widget space $2 $s. No, use a sprint F for variable substitution. That's what these are, right? Whatever sprint F is. Return a formatted string. Okay? So basically, there's an ID in class names that whoever wrote the widget, right? Because widgets are nothing more, can be nothing more than somebody who wrote a plugin also wrote a widget with the plugin. Meaning, this plugin here, the events plugin, right? Well, that came with then this widget. It's calendar, okay? So if I go to dashboard, appearance, widgets, I have sidebar 1 and sidebar 2. Okay, so I have registered 2 sidebars. Okay, so if I want multiple sidebars, I could register 5 of them. Now I have 5 of them. And if I wanted to then add this widget to sidebar 2, categories, right? Or recent posts, let's do that one. This is where then well, let's just say it like this. Right now I'm saying get dynamic sidebar number 1. I have 2 sidebars that have information in them. See, so now all my things have that margin 20 on the bottom. But right now, only the meta sidebar 1 is being generated into the sidebar. Now I have 2 sidebars. Is it reasonable to have different sidebars, or could I have just done this? Which is better? Exactly. Space-time, it's all relative. Okay. Now, if you want to get even more fancy schmancy, you can actually name sidebars. Let's just see if it'll do it the uppercase. Because this is where the name and the slug, this is where you can use that methodology. Just use that methodology, it's appropriate. Name, Fred. I got that wrong, didn't I? Should be around name, yeah. So this convention right here is when you have multiple things in there. I would assume so, because if you said 5, how are you going to name, right? Yeah, I think that's the way it goes. Yeah, and this is where Fred doesn't have the divs, et cetera, like he should.
So if you wanted a custom named sidebar, we could also use sort of a field to call information and put it inside of that specific sidebar.
Say it again.
For example, I have a bunch of resources that I keep on my front page for basically my use. If I wanted to basically put that into a custom field where it's just basically my HTML and stuff, and then put it into a custom named sidebar with but I essentially just basically paste all the HTML into the value field. How much data can that hold? Does it have a limit?
Did it on my students one. That's wrong. It's not what I wanted. That's how I do it. So different ways to get different things into your sidebar, from hand coding it to using dynamic sidebars that are numbered to using dynamic sidebars that are named to, yeah, that text widget is an out-of-the-box WordPress one that you can put your own written up HTML in. And shortcode. So I've passed shortcode through the text widget. So again, if you want a PHP function, you have to convert it to shortcode to put into that text widget. So therefore, then, that's how, on my school site, then I've got all this stuff in my sidebar, right? So if we look at the my sidebar file, I have, if is not search, get my submenu, begin dynamic widgets. Now this is where I then had another div tag around it. If is not page, or is, get sidebar number 1, get side number 2, hand code stuff in there, all the above. So, well, that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is you're using your custom fields and widgets in WordPress. All right. See you later, Fred.